One of the biggest reasons why people fail in life in general, across every aspect of life, is because they're very bad at setting goals. And most people think, oh, I just set a goal and it's going to happen, or they set goals, but they're not tied to anything real. So what I'm going to do with you guys is I'm going to give you guys an actual breakdown on how to do this in a way that it becomes really easy, that you know every single day of the week how much activity you have to put into actually accomplishing those goals in the time frame that you're setting for yourself. And I'm going to give you a couple of extremely practical tools, but I'm also going to talk to you a little bit about understanding what you're actually doing when you're setting a goal and how to really commit to it. A lot of times people set goals. I might be on a sales call with somebody and I say, well, what's the goal for the next 12 months? And I say, oh, we want to double our revenue. And I say, okay, well, how'd you guys decide on that goal? Oh, well, it just sounds like a good goal. That's what we want. Okay, why do you want it? And they don't really have any reason for it except it sounds good. Ask ordinary people, what's a goal that you have financially for the rest of your life? Oh, I want to become a millionaire. Okay, how come? Well, my life would be easier. Okay, do you have to be a millionaire for your life to be easier? Would your life be easier if you just made an extra 100 grand a year, an extra 200 grand a year? So when it comes to the actual act of setting a goal, a better way of doing this is, rather than picking arbitrary numbers out of the sky and just saying, oh, this sounds good, I'll go for that. You want to actually be the architect of your reality. You want to be the kind of person you think, okay, how do I want to live? Well, I'd like to eat healthy. Okay, well, how much does that cost? I'd like to, travel out of the country 2 times a year. Okay, what does that cost? And see, the thing is, what most people do is they just hear other people's goals. They see what other people have done and they say, well, that looks like it's nice. They have no idea what it took to get there. And so they have no basis in reality for trying to figure out what it's going to take to get where they're trying to go. And so when I'm talking to especially younger, newer business people, I'm always telling them, I'm saying, hey, look, what do you want? If every single year was about the same, what would you do? Would you go on 2 or 3 trips? Would you eat all organic, healthy foods? Would you have a personal trainer? Would you be part of a mastermind? Would you have a one-on-one coach? Would you, be throwing big birthday parties? What kind of house would you live in? And see, the cool thing about this is if you get really specific, it becomes really easy to know what you have to do. So as an example, when I did the math on this about 10 years ago, now you guys might have to adjust for inflation because inflation has gone up. I basically figured out if you want to live in about a 4-bedroom house, 4-bed, 2-bath, and you want to travel 3 times a year out of the country for 2 weeks at a time, and you want to have good health insurance and life insurance and all the other things that you need in your life to live well and to be secure and to have some kind of safety net for when things go wrong, you needed to be making about 25 grand a month. And a lot of people are like, man, if I could just get this and this and this, it'd be okay, but I need to make like $1 million or $10 million. I'm like, oh, actually, if you do the math, you might find it's a lot less than you think. Now, the trick to this is you can't just set a goal to set the goal. You have to have enough reasons why you want that goal. Friedrich Nietzsche said, to the man with a how or a why, any how is possible. So you have to understand that these have to be emotionally rooted in your life. They can't just be things that you see and you're like, well, that'd be nice. There's a lot of things that would be nice that wouldn't really get you that excited. And the thing, especially in the financial world and in, your health, is there's probably a lot more work to be done than you realize when you start on the journey towards achieving those goals. And so if you don't have enough reasons why you want those goals, you're going to get run down by all of the hows that you have to endure to get there. And so for those of you that are really ambitious, you're like, I want to live an amazing life. I want to travel. I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to have a bunch of kids. I want to have a big house. You need to get really specific because you can't achieve something if you don't know what it is. So how many rooms do you need to have in that house? Do you want to have a big home gym? Do you want to have a great kitchen? Do you want a pool? What does it cost to maintain a pool every month? What does it cost in water? What does it cost in heating and air conditioning? What does it cost in electricity? What kind of insurance are you going to need to have? How much does that cost? When you start actually breaking down the costs, you can start doing the math to figure out, okay, in order for me to live the best life I can imagine right now, I'm going to need to be making at least X dollars per month, and I'm going to need to have at least this much money in the bank to be secure. And I'm going to need some investments that are spinning off cash to add cushioning to that security. And a good way of thinking about this is just go through Maslow's hierarchy of needs. At the very bottom, you have food, water, shelter. Then you have, security, safety. Then you have the emotional stuff. Then you have fulfillment. So start with the bottom. Just say, okay, what is it going to cost for me to eat healthy food that makes me feel vibrant and alive every day? Okay, do the math. It might be $400 a month per person. It might be 600. It might even be $800 a month, depending on where you live. Okay, $800 a month. Then you look at, okay, what kind of car do I want to drive? Well, I'd really like to have a Range Rover or a G-Wagon or something. Okay, what does that cost? What does that look like if you have it on a payment plan? If you own a business, does it make more sense maybe to have that under the business and you get it wrapped so that it's a business expense and it's a tax write-off at the same time? When it comes to your home, like in my mind, me personally speaking, I know the exact kind of home I want to live in, and nobody's making that home. There's not a house out in the market that I could go find. It doesn't exist. So I had to get creative. I had to go into ChatGPT. I had to go on Google. I had to look at a bunch of things to try and figure out, what's it going to cost to buy the land? What's it going to cost to build this thing? What am I looking at in terms of a 30-year mortgage? How much is my insurance going to be? I literally just went through step by step. Here are the 5 things I need for this house to be reality. And the cool thing about this, by the way, you guys, a lot of people struggle with their goals because they think they need way more than they actually do. A lot of what you need is just shifting your identity to being the kind of person that deserves to have those things before you've achieved them. Yesterday, I was talking to somebody and I told them, I was like, the cool thing about winning is you win before they ever hand you a trophy. You win when you show up on the days that you don't feel like showing up. I was at the gym. I got a 6-mile run in. I did not want to be running. I did not enjoy it. My legs were sore from working out the day before. I was kind of tired because I was still recovering. I just was like, I know what I want for my body. I want to be fit. I want to be able to, run 10 miles without really getting winded. I want to be able to lift heavy weights. I want to be strong. I want to look a certain way. So I'm like, well, look, if I want all of those things, because in my mind, I'm thinking in order to be that kind of person, I have to do these things. But then I've got all these reasons. I'm like, man, I'm a good example for my kids. I'm a good example for my community. I'm a good example for the students that I'm coaching. I'm a good example for people in business. A lot of times people in business let their health go in pursuit of money. It's like the Dalai Lama said, the interesting thing about mankind is he sacrifices his health to get wealth, only to have to sacrifice his wealth to try and get his health back. So I'm like, look, I don't want to go through that. That sounds awful. So I've got all these reasons behind staying healthy. On the money side, I'm like, look, man, I got this castle in my mind I'm trying to build. This is going to cost so much money. I'm going to need to save a bunch of money just to build the thing. Then for 30 years, I'm going to be paying this thing off. I want to be seen as somebody who is respectable. I want to be seen as somebody who, came from nothing and did something with themselves. I want to be a good role model. So when you build up your list of goals, don't forget the second step. The second step is you have to get clear on why is it important that you achieve those goals? Because what's going to happen is you're going to be very excited when you got all your goals written down. Then you have to work. And the thing about it is you're going to have to work and you're going to have expectations that things are going to work out because you're trying, because you're putting the effort in, because you're putting the time in. And they're not going to work out. There are going to be problems all along the way. Now, just to be clear, you're going to have problems in your life even if you're not on the way to achieving your goals. So the least you could do is at least know you're on the way to achieving your goals rather than just sitting in a hole the rest of your life going nowhere. But you're going to have things that are going to come up that are going to be completely out of your control. You're going to have people that are going to kind of betray you. You're going to have people that are not going to work out. You're going to have people that you feel like are there with you, but they're really not, and they don't last. And you're going to have to go at a lot of your goals basically on your own. And eventually people start to see the energy you have. They start to see the passion you have. They start to see, man, this guy just never gives up. This girl never gives up. They're just going. They're going somewhere. And people want to go be around people that they feel like are going somewhere. So eventually you can build up a little team of people that are helping you to accomplish your goals. But you're going to have to spend a big chunk of time in the dark alone before that happens. And if you don't have strong enough reasons why, you'll start noticing that you're not on track to hit your goals. You start noticing that you're losing the passion that you had when you first set those goals. Big part of the reason why a lot of people aren't successful, they set their goals once and they never look at them again. If you really are passionate about it, why wouldn't you look at your goals every single day? Why wouldn't you print it out and put it on the wall next to your desk? So the cool thing is you have a practical way of doing this, but then on the mental side, there's so many things you can do that will actually increase the odds of you accomplishing those goals. I used to do this all the time when I was trying to learn something new. I would write it down and I'd print multiple copies of it. I'd leave it all over my house. Your brain is picking up information all around you all day long that you're not consciously paying attention to. So if you're looking at your phone, shouldn't you have your goals on your phone? The average person looks at their phone something like 1,000 times a day. What an easy way to unconsciously program your brain to think about your goals. Just have your goals be your background. Have them written on your desk. Have them posted up on the wall next to your bed. So you want to keep your consciousness constantly searching for ways in the background for you to accomplish those goals. And then you need to make sure that you cut out anybody in your life that is going to talk negatively about your goals. Somebody says, oh, why don't you be more realistic? You just got to stop talking to them. Now, maybe you don't have to be dramatic. You don't have to say, hey, man, you're too negative. I'm not talking to you anymore. Maybe you just slowly drift off away from this person. But you also need to get people around you that also believe in your goals, people who believe in themselves, that they're also going after big goals in their lives. And so the tricky part about this is it isn't enough to just have goals. It isn't even enough to have goals and to have reasons. You need to create an environment around yourself that supports you consistently improving and working towards those goals. There's an experiment done. There's a book written about it called the Lucifer Effect. They did this experiment where they got a group of guys. Some of them were prisoners. Some of them were prison guards. And they said, look, you can't, be violent or, hit anybody or anything like that. You can't, do anything bad like this. As the prison guards, you got to keep these guys in line, and as prisoners, you need to behave. And they had this experiment slated to run for 2 weeks. They ended the experiment 5 days in because the guys who were playing prisoners became so mentally depressed. Like, some of them weren't eating, they weren't showering. The guards were becoming overly sadistic. They were keeping them up and keeping them from going to sleep, making them do push-ups and sit-ups, and taking their bedding from them, making them sleep on the floor, withholding showers from them, withholding meals. I mean, it devolved. In 5 days, it got so bad, they ended the experiment. In your own life, you cannot hope to have massive success, to live like the best possible life you can imagine, if you're putting yourself in environments that are not going to feed you. It's like a plant. If you put a plant in a pot of rocks, no soil, no nutrients, no nothing, it doesn't matter if you water it. It's not going to grow. It's going to die because it needs the nutrients from the soil. You are no better than a plant. You need good people around you. You need good messages around you. If you're listening to a lot of music that's saying stuff like smacking hoes and shooting guns and selling drugs, you need to switch that up. There's all kinds of motivational compilations you can listen to on YouTube where it's just people talking good. If you have faith, you have a belief system, you should be listening to stuff that's lifting you up every single day. I mean, you got to shower your body every day. Why wouldn't you shower your mind with good information, with things that make you feel positive, that make you feel possible? And this is especially important for people who are really ambitious. Because if you're ambitious, you're going to be in the 1% already. It's going to be hard for you to find people that match your ambition. So you have to be extra careful that you're not allowing little things to consistently pile up in the back of your mind. If you've got the news on in the background every day, I'm telling you, you're going to struggle to achieve big things because you're constantly being bombarded with just negative messages about how terrible the world is, how awful human beings are. The reality is, you go out in the street right now. I live in Arizona. I walk down the street. Everybody I walk by says good morning or good afternoon to me every single day. I don't know any of these people. Every day. The world is a much better place than the news would have you believe. It's a much better place than the music industry would have you believe. It's a much, much better place than the pharmaceutical industry would have you believe. But you have to be the guy or the girl that says to themselves, I'm not going to allow any of this negativity in. I'm not going to, be part of it, because where I'm trying to go will not be supported by that. You're not going to live in a big badass house and drive a nice car and have great investments that are paying amazing returns if you're consistently looking at how bad everything is. So you got to get your goals right, and you got to do the math on it. You got to know what it costs. And you might say, well, Jeremy, how do I do the math on traveling to a bunch of different countries? You just Google it, man. You just Google it. It's that easy. You say, hey, look, I think I'd like to go to Japan. Okay, well, what is a flight to Japan on average? Okay, well, it's like $1,300. How much are hotels? Well, it's going to be another $1,500 if I stay for a week and a half. Okay, and how much is food going to be? And you just do the math, and it's that easy. But the problem is, people don't do the work. They don't do the work. I mean, if you can't even do the math on what it's going to cost to achieve your goals, what makes you think you're going to be able to accomplish the work that you have to do to achieve the goals? So take it serious that you're planning out your life. I know some people, they plan out their weekends where they do nothing better than they plan out their work weeks. And every big goal is just a bunch of successful weeks stacked on top of each other. Every big achievement is just a bunch of little disciplines practiced every single day. But it's just as easy, by the way, instead of practicing the discipline, to practice the excuses. And you can't have both. You can only have one or the other. Now, discipline is painful. It's uncomfortable. There's going to be days like when I was at the gym today. I did not want to do what I was doing when I was in the gym. It was not fun. My legs are sore. My ankles hurt. My calves are stiff. I'm trying to get 6 miles in 70 minutes. It ended up taking 95 minutes. But I ended up doing it because I was like, look, if I give up today, the next time I don't feel great, I'm going to give up again. And then I'm going to give up again. And then my habit is I give up when it's hard. And the thing is, the only difference between people who get what they want out of life and people who don't get what they want out of life is that the people who get what they want do what they have to do regardless of how they feel. And the people who don't get what they want do what feels good when it feels good, and they never do it any other time. It is literally that simple. Get your goals, do the math, get the why, get the game plan, and the game plan's easy. You just reverse engineer it. You say, okay, 5 years from now, I want to be making $1 million a year. The reason I need $1 million is because in order to accomplish all these goals, that's how much cash we got to have coming in. Okay, I'm at 100,000 this year. How am I going to predictably scale up? How many more sales do I need to make? How many more people do I need to hire? How much more do we need to spend on marketing? Are we going to be able to scale to $1 million with whatever offer we currently have? Or are we going to need to have a few offers? How many offers do we need to have? How many affiliates do we need to bring on to start generating some traffic for us from somewhere else? So you have to look at it like a general going into war. A general doesn't say, we're going to take that city, go. They look at the entire area around it. They survey the terrain. They think through, well, if we go in this way, they've got these cannons over here. They've got these missiles and stuff over there. But if we go in this way, well, there's this and there's this. And they think through strategically, okay, what could go right? What could go wrong? Where do we have the highest likelihood of success? Where do we have the most efficient likelihood of success? Meaning not only is the probability that we're successful high, but also the casualties along the way are the lowest. And that's a good question to ask yourself. If you want to make a lot of money, you got to count the casualties you're going to take along the way. Are there some friends and family that are not going to make it through that journey with you? You know, are you going to have to maybe give up on some other goal that's less important to you? You know, you might say, well, I'd like to, compete in the CrossFit games. Okay, well, do you want the CrossFit games more or do you want the money more? You might have to say, hey, look, let me get the money first, then I'll do the CrossFit games. Or you might say, hey, look, the CrossFit games are way more important to me. I love this. I'm so passionate about this. And the interesting thing is, when you get clear on your goals, it gets very easy to decide what things are going to get your attention and your energy. And you start to become a lot smarter about how you proceed towards that. As an example, one of my goals is to compete in bodybuilding. And I look at, financially, I want to be in a certain spot by this time. In the meantime, I can still keep working my body in the gym. I can still keep getting stronger. I can still keep putting on muscle and getting tighter with my nutrition, getting tighter with my supplements, getting better sleep. I can still do those things and make progress towards that goal. But the majority of my energy is on the financial side because I can get further in bodybuilding with more money than I can get in money with more bodybuilding. So start thinking through which of these goals takes priority. And, up until the last 50 or 60 years, there was no such thing as priorities, meaning multiple. Priority means number one. You have to have one goal, one thing that you are obsessively chasing, that you are obsessively becoming the kind of person that deserves to accomplish that goal. And then the strategy side of that is, how do I get these other goals in motion? How do I get them moving forward so that when I hit that main goal, I'm already lined up to hit the next and the next and the next and the next? And so make sure that you don't skip steps, though. People are like, oh, I'm going to be a millionaire. And they just start going. It's like, why are you going to be a millionaire? What if you only need 500 grand? You only need 500 grand. Don't chase the million just because it sounds better. Chase what's going to give you what you want out of life. And just don't skip the steps. Go through the process. Set the goals. Do the math. Get the reasons. Reverse engineer what does that require from you on a daily basis. And then every single day, just do the things. The cool thing is, on a smart timeline, it won't feel overwhelming. It won't cause you to feel burned out because you'll say, okay, every day, if I want to be making $1 million a year, 5 years from now, I just need to be able to make one extra sale. I could do that. That might take me an extra hour or 2 hours a day. I could do that. That's not that hard. And when you break it down to where it's just per day, then it's like, well, why wouldn't I do this? I'm going to be a fucking millionaire in 5 years. Of course I'm going to go after this. Of course I'm going to do this. It's just an extra hour a day. So simplify things so that when you are going through the hard times that are coming, for every single one of us, we're going to go through hard times in our lives. When you're going through those, you say, hey, look, I could do 1 extra hour today. It's not going to kill me. Like, is it going to suck? It might suck. It might not be fun. I might not enjoy it. But if I at least just get that one little thing done, I know I'm not sabotaging myself, and I know I'm going to accomplish what it is I'm looking for out of my life.